Chris Schuker and Pete Terrier here as we recap week number 9 of Friday Night Lights. And Pete, this was a week that saw Londonderry and Nashua South supposed to play last night. They got moved to tonight. Londonderry wishing that it stayed on a Saturday night game as they lose to Nashua South 42-25.
Yeah, a lot of David Zacco in this game. Zacco didn't do a whole lot last week in the loss to Pinkerton. Certainly did tonight. 261 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns. Also had an interception on defense. It was all South early in this one. They jumped out 21-0. Londonderry scored the next 10 points to make it 21-10, but then Nashua South slowly but surely started to up that lead, and they end up winning it going away 42-25.
Nashua South with a great bounce-back effort after being shut out at Pinkerton last week 10-0. Moving on to Manchester West and Salem. The Salem Blue Devils, both teams really with a bit of a lackluster season. The Blue Devils come up with the victory 34-14 behind the running of Max Jakes.
Yeah, Max Jakes, only a sophomore, and he went over 200 yards like David Zacco did for Nashua South. Finished with 208 on the ground, 3 touchdowns on the rushing. And Chris Najum, a senior for Salem, he scored a touchdown. Matt Cannoni, showing that he can throw the football for a Salem quarterback. Usually Jack Gaddy likes that straight T rushing attack, but Cannoni, also a sophomore like Jakes, able to hook up with his favorite target, Corey LaValle, on a long touchdown pass. Too much Salem, not enough Manchester West offense or defense. A tough year for Travis Cody.
3 games in Division II that we had covered here tonight. Bishop Girton and Alver, and the Cardinals coming off that tough loss to the Keene Blackbirds last week. However, they get their senior quarterback and captain Andy Valus back, and he leads that offense to a 33-6 victory.
Yeah, had a couple of touchdown runs, and you could tell once Valus was healthy enough to play, it's an entirely different Bishop Girton team.
Yeah.
They scored 2 touchdowns last week without him in the 18-14 loss to Keene, kind of a fluky loss, too, with the way it ended with the field goal block and all that. But BG, I think, made a statement tonight, and they went out and put the hurt on Alvern like I think many people thought they would. And Valus was huge in this one, and they're going to need him next week because they have to go to Exeter and wrap up their season against the Blue Hawks team that is their big-time rival in Division II. If BG can win that game, they're going to be the number 1 seed in the D2 playoffs. If they lose, they could fall as far as the number 3 seed and have to play on the road in the first round of the playoffs.
That is perennially the Division II championship game. Bishop Girton and Exeter meeting in Week 10 this season. That could have some implications there. The other side of the coin from last week, the Keene Blackbirds, they went to Dunaway Field in Dover, and this time they were on the other end of the upset special as they fall to the Green Wave 12-6.
Yeah, you're not going to win many football games when you have 6 turnovers like Keene did in this game. Matt Kimball, a good quarterback for the Dover Green Wave. Justin Doobie also scored on a touchdown early in that ball game. It was 12-0 Dover. Keene got a Ray Boulay touchdown in the third quarter to make it 12-6, but that Dover defense, give them credit, they stopped Boulay most of this game, and they really weren't able to do much offensively. And, of course, like I said, 6 turnovers, that hurts. Dover still alive with slim playoff hopes, but they need a lot of help. Keene can get into the playoffs. Fact is, they beat Merrimack, and they're in the playoffs as the number 4 seed. They could get in anyway, even if they lose, but they would have liked to have wrapped it up this week with a win. They would have been in.
Yeah, a big game for both sides in that game. Speaking of Merrimack, they took on the Winnicott Warriors, both of those teams at 1-5, really just playing for pride, playing out the string, but you wouldn't have known it the way this game went. The Tomahawks came away with the home victory 22-14 in a pretty hard-fought game.
Yeah, I mean, impressive win by Joe Batista's team. Obviously, it's been a struggle for them in his first year, but now they're 2-5 in the division with that game at Keene actually next week. Very impressive night for Matt Corey. Corey had 3 touchdowns in the game, most of them from close range, a 3-yarder, a 7-yarder, and a 5-yarder. Good win for the program for Merrimack. It's nice to see those guys playing well in a game that didn't count little bit surprising to see a Winnicott team right now, 1-6 in the division. They're usually a playoff contender.
Playoff team last year, shocked Exeter in the regular season.
Yeah, they just don't. They don't have what they usually have, but they've got a young quarterback in Steve Cronin, throwing passes to Harry Knowles. He had a big 81-yard reception in the game. Had a huge game last week in that back and forth game against Timberland. But credit Merrimack, the Tomahawks got one in the win column.
Yeah, and lastly, to Division III, the battle for the 2 seed in the Division III playoffs goes to the Portsmouth Clippers, as this game started out as a shootout in the first quarter, but the Clippers pulled this one out by a very big margin, a score of 43-15.
Yeah, comfortable margin. This one was wild. In the first 3 minutes, there were 3 touchdowns scored, 2 of them by Portsmouth. Mike Francoso, if you have not seen this kid play, get to a game. You're going to have to go to Portsmouth next week if you want to see this kid play, because these two teams are going to meet again next week in the first round of the D3 playoffs. Sauhegan's going to be the number 1 seed, no matter what happened with their game with John Stark tonight. So these two teams will have to go back at it again next week, this time on the Seacoast. Portsmouth, the home team in that Division III semifinal. You got to wonder, did Keith Jones and Milford kind of hold things back a little bit tonight, not wanting to show Portsmouth too much a week before they'd have to play each other again? Or was just Portsmouth just said, hey, here's what we got. We don't care if you see it next week. Just try and stop us. I think that may have been the case with Mike Francoso leading the way. Big 3-touchdown effort through the air, over 200 yards passing, and he also ran for a score and 88 yards on the ground too. So he's a good one.
Yeah, he's done it all season long for the Clippers. Pete, your overall impressions of Week 9 heading into Week 10 next week when we close out the 2008 regular season?
Well, you know what? I wish that Central and Pinkerton played tonight because that's going to be a heck of a ball game.
That has been the overall theme of the night, hasn't it?
It's going to be a great ball game, and if Central can somehow find a way to win and snap the Pinkerton jinx that everybody in Division I seems to have outside of Nashua South, who can't beat them in the playoffs. They can beat them in the regular season, not this year. That's going to be a tremendous ball game, but I think this one was more about playoff positioning and who's going to be playing who when the postseason does start in a couple of weeks. In Divisions 1, 2, 5, and 6, Division 3 and 4, the playoffs will start next weekend.
All right, so playoffs in a couple of weeks. For Pete Terrier, producer Sean Sendall, I'm Chris Schuker. This has been the Week 9 recap show for Friday Night Lights on Sports Radio WGAM The Game and WGAMradio.com.